Well, a dramatic day, as you say, but also, yeah, it's an historic result. He's the first Scottish Asian to become First Minister, but the first Muslim to become First Minister as well. And that will have significance, Cathy, not just in Scotland, but beyond Scotland to the rest of the UK and to Europe as well. I'm not sure there's been another Muslim leader in any national democracy anywhere in Europe. But as you say, this contest has exposed deep divisions within the SNP on independence strategy, on gender recognition reform. The party is deeply divided on that issue. And not only that, but on Nicola Sturgeon's legacy as well. The candidate who got 48% in this election of SNP members basically said that she thought that Nicola Sturgeon's legacy was mediocre. So we're learning things in this contest about what the SNP membership believe about the state of the party, and that, despite all the historic significance of Humza Yousaf victory today, will not make particularly pleasant news for him. I mean, there's probably relief at the top of SNP HQ tonight, quite frankly. He was seen as the continuity candidate. He was seen very much as the establishment candidate. They got their man tonight, the SNP party establishment, but only just, Cathy.
Well, Kieran, for the moment, we are going to see your piece now of all the action from the day.
Humza Yousaf, 26,032. This represents 52.1% of the final vote.
The margins were slim.
I therefore declare Humza Yousaf duly elected as the Scottish National Party leader.
The victory momentous.
And I now invite you up to say a few words.
After a hug and a handshake for the rivals he defeated, Humza Yousaf is embraced by those who know the gravity of this win. His wife and his parents with tear-filled eyes, as Scotland is set for its first ethnic minority and first Muslim First Minister.
It is hard for me to find the words to describe just how honoured I am to be entrusted by our membership of the SNP to be the party's next leader.
In the end, Humza Yousaf relied on second preferences from those who voted for last-placed Ash Regan to squeeze past Finance Secretary Kate Forbes, who'd accused her own government of mediocrity in a fiery campaign. 48% of SNP members who voted sided with her. 52% for Mr Yousaf, who has promised continuity with the Nicola Sturgeon era. You were the continuity candidate in this election. Does this result tell you that continuity won't cut it?
Well, I'm delighted to be standing here as the person that the majority of membership have put their faith in. But what I will do is, of course, reach across the divides that may well exist.
Mr Yousaf promised to lead for all people in Scotland, and yet, with the country stuck around 50-50 on independence, he pledged to make it happen.
We will be the generation that delivers independence for Scotland.
Note, though, unlike his predecessors, he's not suggesting there'll be a referendum anytime soon.
My immediate priority will be to continue to protect every Scot as far as we possibly can from the harm inflicted by the cost of living crisis, to recover and reform our NHS and other vital public services. We have a lot of work to do and get on with, so I suggest we get on with it. Thank you very much.
This is an historic result. It's also a phenomenally close result. Humza Yousaf has plenty of challenges, and they begin right now.
An extremist.
There are record NHS waiting times under Mr Yousaf as Health Secretary. Nicola Sturgeon's promises on education still to fulfil. And with the UK government blocking a cross-party act of the Scottish Parliament on gender self-ID, almost half the party backed Kate Forbes, who said she not only opposes that, but would have voted against equal marriage too. Can you hang around in the cabinet with those ideas?
Well, obviously, Humza has won, so it's hot for Humza to appoint his cabinet, and I, like any other MSP, look forward to supporting him.
You've said goodbye to everybody. Is there a wee twinge of regret?
First Minister for one more day was on Lorraine this morning. Nicola Sturgeon later said Mr Yousaf would be an outstanding leader. But that famous SNP party discipline has dissipated of late as Nicola Sturgeon waves goodbye. Her husband and chief executive also resigned in a row over media briefings on membership numbers, in which the party's Holyrood media chief also quit in protest. The new interim chief executive has called it a tremendous mess. Can I just check if you are in a mess or not at the minute? Because there's different views within the party. The current chief executive seems to think you are.
No.
Not in a mess?
No, of course we're not in a mess. I mean, of course we're going to have disagreements within...
You said you're in a mess.
Yeah, we're going to have disagreements within the party, but, you know, we need to draw a line on what's happened over the course of the last few weeks. There's been robust disagreement. I think some of it's been good, some of it's not been good.
It's certainly new territory. The SNP is now, for the first time in almost 2 decades, led by someone other than Alex Salmond or Nicola Sturgeon, serial SNP election winners. Opponents sniff an opportunity.
He claimed during the campaign that he wanted to be the first activist for independence. He has to be the first minister of the whole of Scotland.
I've always been of the view that we can't wait for the wheels to fall off the SNP bus. We have to, with humility, reach out, earn people's trust, earn their support and demonstrate what change looks like for Scotland.
Never told me, that's a nice surprise.
It's a result, though, with significance beyond party politics for the man currently fasting for Ramadan, from Glasgow's south side, whose mum's from Kenya, his dad and grandparents from Pakistan.
They could not have imagined, as I say in their wildest dreams, that 2 generations later, that their grandson would one day be on the cusp of being Scotland's First Minister. We should all take pride in the fact that today we have sent a clear message that your colour of skin, or indeed your faith, is not a barrier to leading the country that we all call home.
Hello. Well, how are you feeling?
Very excited, very proud of him indeed.
His parents say there has been a personal toll.
Negative stuff is always hard to take, especially when there's a lot of mudslinging against your son. But then, you know, he told us this would happen.
What message do you think this sends, his election?
I think it sends a message of hope that anybody can stand for SNP leader and, you know, First Minister. It doesn't matter about your background or, you know, where you come from. And I think that's why this is very positive, I think, for the whole of our nation.
Tomorrow, Humza Yousaf, a 37-year-old dad,
We're going to be in the hotel maybe later. We're going to look there?
will become the youngest ever First Minister too. How are you all feeling?
The honest answer.
Great.
SNP members have had their say. The broader challenge is convincing the country that self-styled Mr. Continuity is what's needed right now.
Well, I'm joined now by Angus Robertson, MSP, the Scottish Government's Cabinet Secretary for the Constitution and a leading backer of Humza Yousaf. Angus Robertson, perhaps you could tell me whether this is all about change or is it about continuity? Because he's the first Muslim national leader in a Western democracy, and yet he's a familiar face, having been in government for a decade. Which is in the ascendant, change or continuity?
Well, I think it's a mixture. I think there's a continuity of values, and that was really important for a lot of members of the SNP. We're a socially liberal party. We have a progressive agenda, and I think that is what Humza Yousaf represented. So that is continuity there. But of course, anybody coming into government will have to put their own stamp on things, and they'll have to define their premiership. And we'll learn more from Humza Yousaf in the days ahead. He has to appoint a new cabinet, appoint new ministers, present to Parliament what his plans are. So I think the result reflects the fact that he represented where the majority of the SNP membership is, and we'll hear in the days ahead what it is that he's planning in terms of the rest of his programme.
Same old plans, though, on independence and on public services, where he's been in charge. The only new tool he's got on health, for example, talking about that, he was Health Secretary. The only new tool he's got there is levying wealth taxes, right?
Well, so firstly, and no surprise that the Scottish National Party wants to secure independence for Scotland. We actually have a majority in the Scottish Parliament.
But he's got no new tactics for doing it,
well,
has he?
unfortunately, we're dealing with a UK government that's blocking democracy in Scotland. So if it was up to us, yes, we'd have a referendum, yes, we'd been elected to do that, and unfortunately the UK government is blocking it. So we're going to have to continue
exactly
working.
The same tactic as Nicola Sturgeon tried,
Well,
Section 30.
Democracy denial is not going to work forever. And as we know, support for independence amongst younger voters runs between 60+%. So it's going to be a matter of time before we have a referendum. It comes. In terms of the other parts of the agenda, absolutely, the Scottish Government is responsible for health, for education, for justice, for transport, the environment, a great many things. And I know that he will get to grips with all of the issues under his premiership. He has experience, and that's a good thing. But he's a young man. It's a historic victory. And as you said, and I don't think we should glide over this, he becomes the first Muslim head of government in a Western European democracy. It's an amazing day for Scottish politics.
That's the change bit, but I'm trying to find where else he can change and not just be more of the same. So new wealth taxes, is that a big change from the past?
Listen, Nicola Sturgeon made announcements about tax. People who earn more, like politicians, pay a bit more tax. Average taxpayers in Scotland pay less in taxes than the rest of the UK. It's for Humza Yousaf to lay out his programme for government once he's elected as First Minister. That will happen tomorrow in the Scottish Parliament, and I'm sure that he will lead the SNP to success in elections thereafter.
His rival said he was a mediocrity. How on earth is he going to bring the party together after such a rancorous campaign, let alone the country?
Well, the SNP has been in government for 16 years, and part of the reason why it's done that and why it polls plus 40% in the opinion polls, so it's amongst the best performing political parties anywhere in Europe, it does that because we do work together. And I think there's going to be a rallying around Humza Yousaf as the new SNP leader and as First Minister, and we'll go into the next elections, whether Westminster or in the Scottish Parliament, with a very clear focus about re-election and electoral success.
And a very clear division on the gender recognition reforms, which is partly what contributed to Nicola Sturgeon's demise. Is he really going to go to court to fight for the former First Minister's gender reforms?
Well, Humza Yousaf will announce what Humza Yousaf is going to announce.
Do you think he should do that, though?
Well, it's important for people, especially people outside Scotland, to realise that the Gender Recognition Act was passed in the Scottish Parliament overwhelmingly across all of the parties. So should a First Minister reflect the will of the Scottish Parliament on that, or Scottish independence or anything else? Yes, absolutely. In normal democracies, one does what the Parliament votes for that to happen, and I'm sure that will happen under Humza Yousaf premiership.
Angus Robertson, thanks very much.